Today in the Nerdy Gritty, with Ubisoft's goal of historical accuracy in the recent Assassin's Creed games, people are upset that you can play as a female Viking in Valhalla. What do we think about that?
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. World that makes a man insane. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I am Leaf Foxison.
I am Diz.
Hello.
It's Herman Yerward. I'm the chef.
There it is.
The chef.
He's Swedish.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
Yeah, this is very offensive. Very offensive. Not historically accurate.
No,
all.
Not in the least.
All right. Hey, we have to, before we do anything, big shout out, big old happy B-Day to the one, the only George Lucas. It's his birthday today.
Happy birthday. Today, the day we're recording
Today,
this?
the day we are recording this. It is George Lucas's birthday. He's turning however many years old, I don't know. But I thought we'd do a little tribute to him and his thing, how he does things.
How...
We're going to generate our Star Wars names.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And I found there's a lot of Star Wars names generators out there.
Does George Lucas like Star Wars anymore? I bet he doesn't.
So.
I bet he doesn't.
I think he has specifically talked about selling Lucasfilm, LucasArts to Disney as a divorce. George Lucas, you started something. I haven't liked everything you produced, but that's okay. I don't need to. But I do appreciate that you had some really great ideas that created this universe.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, there was some really great creativity there and some really good stuff. So happy birthday. Let's generate our Star Wars names. This one, we're going to specifically come up with ones that could only be unique to us.
Okay.
There are a lot of just like, here's random names that we found in Wikipedia. Here's yours or whatever. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with you, of course.
Of course.
Of course. That's what we always do.
Yeah.
All right, Star Wars name generator. What you're going to do is come up with the name, and then we're going to figure out what your role is in the Star Wars universe.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so your first name. The first three letters of your last name.
Des, that's where I got my...
first three letters.
Oh, Val.
So, Val. And then also the first two letters of your first name.
ST.
ST. So your first name is Valst.
I'll take that. That
sounds like a Star Wars name.
Yeah.
Valst. And then your last name are the first two letters of your mother's maiden name.
Okay, first two letters?
First two letters.
G-A.
G-A. And the first three letters of the town you were born in.
T-U.
First three letters, so T-U-C.
T-U-C. Gatuk.
Yeah, so you're Valst Gatuk.
Valst Gatuk.
That sounds like a Star Wars name.
Heck yes,
this is an
man.
impressive Star Wars name generator. Because here's the thing. It sounds like a Star Wars name because Star Wars names are nonsense. They're absolute.
All fantasy names are nonsense.
They are now. All right, so you are Valst Gatuk.
Gatuk. It's pronounced Gatuk.
Gatuk. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Valst Gatuk. I want to know what your role in Star Wars is. Where are you from? What do you do?
Crescent.
You're from what?
Crescent roll. They're delicious.
Crescent? Do you mean
Crescent
Coruscant?
rolls? No, crescent roll.
Oh, I see. Your role. You're a crescent. That's the kind of role you are.
Yeah.
I see.
Could have gone with
a
croissant.
Sure. What do you do in Star Wars? Tell me.
Oh, I have to. I thought there was a generator.
No, there is not a generator for that. This is where our creativity comes in.
Okay.
Here, however limited it is.
Valst Gatuk.
Valst Gatuk.
I'll say this doesn't sound Jedi to me.
Okay.
I'd say Valst Gatuk sounds like the informant, like the guy who knows stuff.
Okay.
That like you pay money to a bartender who pays money to a one guy, so you can like get a secret meeting with Valst Gatuk.
Ah, you're an information broker.
Yeah.
All right, let's come up with mine. So first three letters of my last name. That's my whole last name. So Fox. Oh, it turns out my name is just Fox McCloud. That's cool. Just kidding. And then my first two letters of my first name. Sometimes it's just not going to work, but I'm so Foxky. Foxkey.
That's your first name? That's the whole thing's your first name?
Yes.
Foxkey.
Foxky.
Foxkey.
Foxky. Sure, we'll go with it. And then my last name, first two letters of my mother's maiden name would be S-O. Her last name was Southard.
It's sombrero.
Yeah, Southard Sombrero. First three letters of the town I was born in, P-O-I. I was born in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. So P-O-I.
Yours is bad.
I'm Foxky Sopoy.
Foxkisopoy.
Fox. I sound like
You're an alien.
like Eastern European.
You're 100% an
I'm
alien.
some sort
This is
of
not a human name.
Foxky Sapwa. Sapui.
Sapui.
Sapui. Yeah, I think that's just kind of like some rando like in Jabba the Hutt's like entourage or something. He's just
That's exactly right.
nobody knows
Like
that's his
Bib
actual
Fortuna.
and I look like some kind of weird animal, like kind of. So I'm not known as Foxky Sopoy. That's my actual name. I'm just known as like Bat Boy
Two
or
Trunk.
something, or like some kind of weird like just
Like
physical
Snaggletooth.
descriptor.
Yeah. Speaking of universes that I love.
Is it this one?
No.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
No. The Kingdom Hearts universe. There is a rumor going on right now, and I want to doubly emphasize rumor.
Okay.
That Disney Plus is going to be starting a Kingdom Hearts television series. That is basically I'm like, woof. Exactly what are we doing?
If it's
now,
animated, okay, I could see it making sense. I could seeing it work maybe.
there are rumors abounding all over the place. Some of them are saying it's essentially going to be a compilation of cutscenes from all of the games that are now weaved together into kind of shows,
trying to make
basically a story explanation of the Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Others are saying it's a live action remake of some of the
Oh
other
no,
games.
I want to see that because it would be so terrible.
Others are saying that it's going to be entirely unrelated to games, a whole side story. Others still are saying that it's going to be Sora, Donald, and Goofy, but on adventures that we have never seen them on before. Others still are saying that it's just a rumor and is not true at all. So here's what I want to ask you, Fox. Again, this is literally just a rumor, but a rumor, I think literally what has happened is one news site said, we heard this rumor.
Of course.
And a million others picked that up and
journalism
reprinted
nowadays,
it. Yeah. So,
quote unquote journalism.
yeah, whether or not it's true, we don't actually know. It could be entirely false.
All right.
But Fox, plotline for a new Kingdom Hearts TV show. Go.
No, plot line, sure. We'll get into that.
Yes.
I want it to be the voice actors, though, who voice them, playing them I want middle-aged Haley Joel Osment playing Sora.
If you saw him in The Boys, you would, which is probably the most recent thing you've seen Haley Joel Osment in. He does not look like he's ready to be Sora
in the least. Hey, did you ever watch the documentary The King of Kong?
No.
It's a documentary from 2007. Largely, it was basically about the
Donkey Kong
world record holders for the original Donkey Kong arcade game.
Right.
And through that, it kind of told a bigger story about like arcade game records and like how you can technically beat certain games. They will go until like literally the game's memory has run out and it can't do anything, and that's considered like you have something called a kill screen. Anyway, there are record holders for high score, whatever, and it kind of showed there were two major players in there. One of them was Billy Mitchell, and the other one was let me see. Oh, dang it, what is his name? Steve Wiebe.
Billy Mitchell's the fake guy, right?
Here's the thing. Billy Mitchell is basically considered the villain in this documentary. He's got kind of this doesn't make him a villain, but he's got kind of a douchey personality. He's also accused of straight up cheating.
Right.
Many times in his life. So former Donkey Kong, with this happened recently, former Donkey Kong and Pac-Man high score champion Billy Mitchell has been in court with Twin Galaxies. Twin Galaxies is like the arcade for like established record holding runs. If you don't know that, it's on the East Coast. I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's like this is the one you go to. It's like the arcade of arcades.
It's the Guinness Book of arcade
essentially
records.
Like if you want something to be, it's you don't have to be there for it to be official, but that's like the place people like to go.
Right.
Twin Galaxies, they've been in court with Twin Galaxies over its decision to remove his high scores from their leaderboards.
Ooh,
According
okay.
to court documents. Known for his appearance in King of Kong, Mitchell was accused of achieving these scores on emulated software,
Right.
which is strictly forbidden.
Right.
It has to be live, or there are certain, if you are doing over video, which I think there are ways to do it, there have to be certain parameters and how it's recorded and things like that. He threatened legal action. So apparently, let's see. Mitchell's lawyers claim this statement is libelous in its face, and it asserts that Mitchell did not achieve his record scores legitimately. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten to when there's a decision, but what's crazy to me is that this is still going on.
Obviously, we are recording this I
hope so.
We are recording this. That's it. No, we are recording this in
story.
the quarantine.
The quarantines.
And there's a lot of people at home. Well, the March to April stream measurements have come in.
Oh,
So,
they're going to be massive.
in an article from The Verge, the coronavirus stream measurements have come in. The overall stream watching and streaming financial situation has grown 45% in 1 month.
5%.
That means that whatever they were making for everything before that, on average, half it and then add it on to that.
This is watching, or like
This is hours watched right now.
Hours watched.
45%.
Dang.
That is overall. Facebook gaming grew 72%.
Facebook gaming.
In 1 month. It grew 72%.
Man.
Twitch, of course, had the biggest. So here's what I
it's
want to ask
massive.
you. How many hours of Twitch do you think was watched from March to April?
Oh, okay. During the quarantine.
Yeah.
How many hours?
Yeah, hours.
Do you have any
overall.
kind of baseline that you can give me, like before that?
A lot.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna go with 200 million hours.
1.64 billion.
Dear Lord.
1.64 billion watched hours in Twitch. From
Man, do you remember when
March to
we were
April.
kind of thinking maybe Twitch is on the out? When they lost like Ninja and
when
stuff?
they lost Ninja to Mixer? Yeah.
I'm sure Mixer has increased, but
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like they're on the out.
Mixer and YouTube had the least amount of growth among major streamers, with 12 and 14 respectively.
Okay.
Mixer and YouTube.
The Sandman is my favorite comic book series of all time. I'm very close to finishing my collection of the original series. I have 4 more issues to get.
Nice.
Very close. And there have been decades now of, are they going to make a movie, a TV? It's been in development hell for a very long time.
Right.
So yesterday it was pretty well received when it was announced a Sandman Audible adaptation.
Oh,
Is coming out.
nice.
So essentially, I doubt it's going to be a frame for, obviously not frame for frame. It's going to be like a, it's not just going to be somebody reading it.
Right.
I assume it's going to be kind of a radio play is my guess, like kind of like a podcast maybe.
Yeah.
Taking specific stories. I don't know a lot of details. What they've announced is the cast of who's
Okay.
going to be playing different characters. Dream, also known as Sandman, also known as Morpheus, also known as many other names, the Lord of the Dreaming, Master of Stories, is being played by James McAvoy.
Nice.
I think it's a good choice.
I can see that.
I
Yeah,
think it's
absolutely.
a good choice. Death, Kat Dennings, also known as Darcy from the Thor movies, also in Two Broke Girls.
Interesting. Okay.
That is an interesting choice. She
Yeah.
has kind of a like a girly-ish voice. I mean,
But
stereotypically.
they give Death that persona in the comics, though. She's
she's
very
one of the
feminine.
best characters in the whole series.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she's also very like bubbly and
Yeah.
like serious at times, but a lot of times very positive. She's a really great character. So I think that's good.
Although I think Kat Dennings would also make a good Dementia?
Her name Delirium.
Delirium. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into what have you been up to this week?
Well, I went back and started playing Animal Crossing because
Yeah.
you gave it back to me.
You have custody of
Yeah,
Animal
I know,
Crossing.
because our patrons bought us Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Thank you, patrons. And so we've been sharing it, and I have my weekends. Oh. No, I have Animal Crossing now, and I picked it up and I started playing it for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, man, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I kind of put it back down, and I did other things. And this morning I picked it back up, and I'm like, all right, I'll guess. Ooh, what is that bug?
There it is.
Ooh, what is that bug?
There it is.
Wait, there's something in the river over here.
oh,
Oh, wait,
oh.
that's right. I had that chicken guy, huh? And like all of a sudden everything was just like
Chicken guy.
one of my islanders is a chicken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm just like I went and talked I picked the bug and I went and talked to Blathers, and Blathers was like, "Hey, by the way, now," that's Blathers' voice. "By the way, now."
That's definitely him. He's not fussy British man.
No. Now we get art. Art's going to be coming.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of
and
new
I'm
stuff
like,
that-
holy crap, this is awesome. But my favorite thing about picking up Animal Crossing again right now, as I went to the board and there was stuff like Bunny Day is starting soon. Bunny Day is ending soon.
Oh, thank the God.
And I'm
Thank
like,
the gods.
I missed it.
Yes.
Yes.
One of my things I'm going to talk about today is a little interesting. I was wondering how to talk about it, but there is an article on Polygon called "The Post-Disaster Artist." It is about director Josh Trank, who he directed Chronicle, the found footage movie about
Superpowers.
some teenage boys who basically get levitation or get telekinesis powers. He was then basically brought on to direct Fantastic Four, the newest one, not any of the old ones.
The really
newest
successful one?
None of them have been really. Well, I guess the old ones were successful by those days' standards, that's for sure. No, the one that failed miserably,
Yeah.
box office wise, and also wasn't very good. And this story is about his entire, like, what it was like to go from making Chronicle to just the production process of making Fantastic Four.
Interesting.
He had some creativity, like he had things he wanted to do that the studio didn't want. He filmed things, and there was a lot of reshoots and different voices being forced upon, and it doesn't just talk about the production process. It talks about like his like mental state during all of this, and kind of he received death threats.
Yeah.
Because bad movie means bad Fantastic Four. I like it so much. I take it personal, whatever. A lot of stuff that happened, and now talks about kind of coming out on the other side of that.
Well, speaking of disasters, my wife and I have been going back and watching series of movies. So
Okay.
we watched the entire Marvel,
Sure.
the Infinity
Saga.
and we're like, well, we're gonna do Star Wars soon, but
Ooh.
before we do Star Wars, let's get some crappy ones out of the way. So we decided Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, terrible
Some
movies.
Bad
All of them are
movies.
bad.
Yeah, we watched the extended version of the first one and the first half of the extended version of the second one, and I had two insights watching them for the first time in probably 8 years. A long, long time. Number one, they're very good. Gasp. The other thing that I was pretty shocked with is Gollum's animation didn't hold up like I thought it would.
Not in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not, or the second one is what I'm talking about right now.
Really? You're including Two Towers.
Yeah.
And
it's not bad by any means.
No.
It's not like, it's still better than Black Panther.
it's still better than a lot of things that come out today. So I've watched it twice now, but my wife and I finished watching the sitcom New Girl.
Yeah.
You ever seen it?
No, that's not true. I watched one episode of it and was like, this is not my comedy.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah.
It is a classic sitcom, kind of like, I mean, a recent sitcom.
Yeah.
Not classic. There's definitely it's a new era sitcom kind of thing. And it's very funny because of some of the characters. Some of the characters are extremely funny because they have 7 seasons to kind of really find who this character is. My biggest problem with the show, though, is that it's called New Girl. It's about Jess, who moves into this loft with a bunch of like three guy roommates, and she's the new girl, and she's weird and quirky and, you know, whatever. And then sitcom things happen.
Right.
She becomes extremely dumb. toward the last couple seasons, where her character just kind of changes and she still just makes terrible life decisions and she legitimately needs to see a therapist because she has problems with like letting go, but it's all played for laughs and it's so annoying to watch.
It sounds like the opposite of the show rewatch that I just started.
Okay.
The Office.
Oh, you're watching it again already?
I finally got my wife to watch it with me.
Yeah.
So I remembered, she's like, I watched the first season with you and I'm not interested in watching it anymore. And I'm like, wait, no, that's exactly it.
Well, you should be.
It's
you
the
need
second
to.
season.
Yeah.
Come on. And so second season episode 1 is the Dundees. And it's
such a seminal episode.
It
Such
really
a crux
is
of an episode.
And so we watched that and I think it definitely helped. But what I immediately saw because we watched the pilot, and that's when she's like, I've seen this.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen all of these. And so I saw the pilot, then we watched the Dundees, and right after that,
you can kind of just jump to season 2 and it really not be that big of a detriment.
Yeah, I mean, there's some character introduction that happens and relationship introduction that is kind of
tiny
important.
amount, but yeah. Dundee's really gets that like will they won't they started.
Yeah. Well, also the relationship between Jim and Dwight, but still.
Oh, that's true.
But the growth of the characters in that show from season 1, episode 1 to the very end of it is wonderful.
That's all I got.
And that's all I got.
I'm playing a lot of the same games, so I don't need
Yeah,
to talk about
a lot of Final Fantasy 7, which we'll be talking about next week.
Sure, 100%.
So, all right, well then let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Absolutely.
Hey, but before we do that, we want to let you guys know that if you're hearing this right now, that means that you're listening to the shortened version of this podcast. We cut down our first chunk here in which we talk about things we've been up to, some news articles, all kinds of crazy things, our Star Wars names. All of that is condensed. Yeah, very important. All of that is condensed just for easy listening. But if you really enjoy that, if it's something you want to hear more of, our patrons over at patreon.com/dezandfox at the $5 level get what's called the director's cut of the Nerdy Gritty, which is a 100% unedited version of this podcast. Now we want to be clear, when we get down to the Nerdy Gritty, nothing is edited. The actual topic of the podcast is always fully available and fully talked about, and you hear everything. But if you love to hear Fox and I banter back and forth about all kinds of things and what we've been up to and whatnot, go check us out at patreon.com/dezandfox. We would love your support. All right, let's get down to the nitty gritty.
So recently there's been a bit of controversy. There was an announcement that the next Assassin's Creed title will be called Valhalla, and it will be a Scandinavian, Viking-based story, largely set in the UK. You are apparently playing a Viking party setting out to find a new place to settle, whatever. And that's not the controversy. People love that. People are down for that. The controversy stems from it was announced that your main character, similar to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the last one that came out, can be a female. You can choose to play as a female Viking.
Right.
There are people decrying this decision, stating that it is historically inaccurate, and that they are claiming that there were not female warriors in Viking culture.
Right.
And so what we want to talk about today is how far, at least something I want to talk about is how far does the Assassin's Creed series, how faithful should Ubisoft be to recreating a historical setting, as well as just the controversy surrounding this? Is this something that deserves controversy?
Here's what I'm going to tell you, Fox, now. You're going to figure this out now because I didn't say it to you before, but I fully plan on playing devil's advocate here because I think that I could probably sum up our opinions right now in one sentence.
Yeah, as we usually can.
Yeah, and that is, hey, this is a fictional video game.
Yeah.
There's only so much historical action you can
that's
do.
part of my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
But I've been reading a couple articles, and we were talking to one of our patrons, and there were some decent thoughts that I at least thought were worth conversing.
Sure.
And so here's what I'll say, and I'll go and start us off here. And here's what I'll say: if you were trying to create a historically accurate piece of art, even though it's art, And even though there's going to be artistic liberties taken, if your goal is historical accuracy, why is that the exception that you're making? That is kind of a big one.
Okay.
I mean, if you can stand up and just say, hey, we're legitimately trying to be historically accurate here. We understand female protagonists are a big thing today and gender equality is important today. And we recognize that, and that's a good thing. But historically, Vikings didn't have female, the raiders didn't take females with them. And so we are trying to stay true to that. I mean, if you're not going to put a samurai sword in the hands of these Vikings, why put a woman at the helm?
Now, here's before we get into that a little bit more, I honestly don't care if there were female Vikings. That to me is irrelevant to this conversation.
Okay.
I understand that can be relevant to you. If you want to create a historically accurate depiction of a culture and a time period, sure, that's important to recognize the roles that gender has played within that culture and to depict them accurately. But I understand it's the argument that we're going to come back to every time, but everything about this is fictional.
Right.
Literally everything about this. And I keep coming back to the concept that whenever we remember something, we are not remembering that thing. We are remembering the last time we remembered it. There's this phenomenon where your memories will change over time.
Yeah.
And that's going to be affected by a lot of things, what other people tell you, whatever. But you are not remembering the actual event. It happened once, and now you are remembering your memory of it. And look, I'm not a memoriologist. I'm not a scientist.
They're
but
called memorologists?
I'm so sorry.
Neither of those are true. They're both nonsense
They're
words.
both nonsense words. But I feel like it's very similar here. When every single attempt to recreate a historical depiction of something is always going to be wrong. I don't understand the attitude that it has to be historically accurate, considering everything we are doing when creating a historical society, including like museum exhibits, is always our interpretation of things that we find. We do not have the ability to faithfully recreate anything photographed, the ability to take a photograph. It's always going to be an interpretation of what we find or what we are told.
Okay, you say that, but just recently you and I were discussing Ghost of Tsushima.
Yep.
The game, and we were both lauding how historically accurate this looked and how cool it was.
Well, yes, it looked. I don't know.
But would you not be bothered if the dude pulled a handgun and shot somebody?
I think that's a little exaggerative.
It is. It's very exaggerative.
But I understand.
To make a point.
I understand. No, I'm not saying that we can put whatever we want and just call it Viking times. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that we don't have the ability to faithfully recreate everything, and therefore to claim that something is historically inaccurate and something is not is a nonsense argument.
What if it's, and I will change the verbiage for your point here, what if it's as historically accurate as we could make it?
That statement right there proves the fact that it's going to be inaccurate in some way.
Well, as we are aware of, at least then, because what you're saying is we don't know if we can exactly match the history because we don't know the exact history. We can't know the exact history. What we can know is the written history that we do have.
Right.
There are things that we, to an extent, can know.
I did say before that I don't think actual historical documents and stuff are actually super important for creating this video game. But I'll go against that right now and say that in the Poetic Eddas, it talks about shield maidens and it talks about female warriors. So, I mean, they do exist in historical record.
Yes.
Now, again, those are poetry. Those are not necessarily just historical, documents created for the purpose of recording real life.
Well, and the purpose of the shield maidens was that they were the ones defending from other raiders. Like, they trained the women because they were the ones who stayed home to defend.
But here's the thing. If everything that we're going to be creating, like the TV show The Vikings or whatever it was called, or even God of War that talks about Norse mythology and has elements of historical whatever in it, if everything's going to be technically impossible to be accurate, then who's to say that there's not this one lady you can be? Like, this is the historical accurate version as far as we know. Can you disprove the fact that there was not this lady you can play as? Why not?
So what would be the point of making a historically accurate game at all then? If your point is that history itself is something that we cannot confirm in any way, shape, or form, therefore we can do whatever we want with
that's
it.
exaggerating my point. You absolutely can confirm some things.
So then,
what I'm saying is that we are not creating history, we are creating our perception of history. And our perception of history is going to be inherently flawed. And so trying to claim that something in this creation is wrong is inherently impossible to prove or disprove.
what if their goal is to try and be as accurate as possible to our current interpretation of that history?
That's clearly not their goal. Then if that's the case, then the person complaining is complaining against something that is not the instated goal.
That's part of the goal, for sure.
No, what I'm saying is like Ghost of Tsushima. Let's talk about that. Like, if I were to come out there and say, "Oh, Jin never existed," obviously they're creating a fictional situation based on a culture and setting that did historically exist. I mean, actually, the island in this game in Tsushima doesn't actually exist in real life, but it's using their own fictionalized form of history.
Right.
So if I come at they're not trying to claim that Jin's real. They're not trying to claim, like, neither the female or male protagonists in Valhalla exist. And so if I'm coming at it with a argument of, oh, it's not historically accurate, this lady never existed, they didn't exist, well, neither did the guy. Neither did the man that the people are creating.
I think you're misrepresenting the argument, though. The argument isn't that woman didn't exist or that man didn't exist. I think the argument is their culture didn't bring women on their raids. And that does exist. That culture was a real culture. That was a real thing that existed. And because that was a real thing that existed, we can properly or improperly represent that culture.
Does the existence of that woman create a improperly portrayed culture, though? Okay, let's create a real...
I think the answer is yes.
Let's create a quote-unquote real-life analog.
Okay.
World War II. Women weren't allowed in the military.
Right.
There were females who fought. You can find stories of them. So if in a 1,000 years... somebody creates a video game about World War II and portrays one of the main, protagonists as a woman, is it historically inaccurate?
I would argue that depends on how they portray it. If they portray it as a woman who ended up just stuck in the war, she was a French villager and ended up just being with a squad with a gun, and they just kind of accepted her into that squad, I think that would make perfect sense. Or a woman who, pretended to be a man and was able to pass as a male.
That's called
or
Mulan.
Whatever. And yep. But if you're telling me there was a woman who the game begins and she is clearly a woman and openly a woman, and she's just part of the military as normal and everything is as if she's always been there, then that would be historical
inaccuracy.
That's a good
point. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it does definitely depend on the context of how it's portrayed. I just find this, like, I'm having a hard time accepting that this one thing means it's historically inaccurate when literally everything in it is fictional, when literally the entire game, none of it actually happened. And so to complain that this game is historically inaccurate because this one thing that they're portraying didn't actually happen is nonsensical.
And that's true. So maybe the phrase should be, this game is portraying historical inaccuracies. Instead of saying this game is historically inaccurate, of course it is. It's a work of fiction.
Right.
These things didn't happen. But if they are saying, but we want to properly represent a culture, and then they come out misrepresenting that culture. So, for example, what if on another side of things here, we had Ghost of Tsushima, and there was a temple to Joseph Smith. There was a Mormon temple in there that you could go and pray to. That would
just like real life.
just like actual feudal Japan.
Yeah.
It would be, you know, and it still looks very like, you know, feudal Japan-esque with stones and carvings and whatnot, but it's clearly to the Latter-day Saints. That would be historically inaccurate. Sure, it's a work of fiction, and sure, maybe in this fiction, the Book of or the Mormons came earlier and they went, but sure, whatever else. But no, there is still a cultural and historical timeline that we're trying to represent here. And if that, not to mention, that's a religious thing for them. That was a cultural importance to them. And I don't know if the gender thing was a cultural importance to the Vikings, but I do know it was important to a lot of other cultures at the time, that women took care of the household. The shield maiden aspect was an important thing. And the raiders, the Viking is just Norse for raider. The raiders were the men going out and proactively going to these areas and fighting. You know, people didn't really argue about Odyssey because the Spartan women were also trained and were also warriors.
Sure.
It's different for the Viking culture. And so if we're going to say, hey, please properly represent that culture's religion. Hey, please properly represent that culture's dress. Hey, please properly represent that culture's fill in the blank. Why not say, hey, please properly represent that culture's gender roles?
Here's I don't think, and I think this is where I differ, I don't think there can be as fine a line drawn between historical representation and also telling a what-if story. I think, like, this reminds me of a very long and poorly portrayed argument that I had on YouTube, always a good idea, about, so when there was a interview with one of the creative leads, I guess, or whoever, when they were making the Call of Duty Modern Warfare remaster, there was a very brief moment where they talked about in this, like, what if we changed up Captain Price? Yeah, that character, whatever. One of the main characters that people loved. What if he was a woman instead? And people were upset for a lot of reasons. And I can look, that's the whole thing that I got into. But there was also the argument made that, well, no, this, you know, rank or this position in the military has always been filled by men. There's never been a woman who does that. Mm-hmm. Is it wrong? Is it inaccurate to say, hey, here's this rank, here's this role that's being played. Yeah, it maybe didn't, like, Price's rank or whatever, Captain Price in, you know, Black Ops or whatever they were. Yeah, in real life, a woman has never had that rank. But in this game, we are accurately displaying this rank, this role in society, in this military. We're accurately displaying everything about it. The character happens to be a female. Does that mean that the game is historically inaccurate? Or is it saying, let's show everything accurate and it's played by a female? I don't think that we can draw that line between, like, I think a what if story is okay and you can still designate that story as historically accurate.
I agree with you. And again, I'll get into my actual opinion. I'm playing devil's advocate here. But if our goal, that's a very modern thing. And when we talk about modern things like our modern military, things are always in flux. And so if we're to say a woman's never held that position before, we can say, yeah, but maybe they will. In fact, I'm pretty sure they will eventually, because we're in a time in which we're knocking on the glass ceiling pretty hard here. So yeah, hopefully that woman will fill that position. So we're portraying, our video game portrays a lot of possible future weaponry.
I don't even care about the if they will or will not. I'm saying, is it impossible for them not to?
And again, I think that if we're talking about modern times, there's a difference between saying that's the way things are now or could be in the future to that's what it was.
We can't say that with 100% accuracy, though.
No, we can't.
We can't. You cannot in any way, shape, or form say there was never a woman in a raiding party. To me, that'd be bonkers to say. It'd be ridiculous
wild
to say there was never a woman who was in a Viking raiding party. And the fact that you can't factually say this never happened says, okay, maybe this is historically accurate. You don't know. We don't know either. This is the story we want to tell. We are portraying this culture as historically accurate as we possibly can. And also, this possibly could have happened, so we're going to say it did. It's all fictional anyway.
All right, we're getting close-ish to the end, and I'm running out of argument, so I'm actually going to get into how I agree with you, because I think you had a major point.
I think you had some really good points too. I want to say, I don't want to say that everybody who believes that is wrong.
No.
Like I appreciate wanting to be historically accurate.
And I will say the reasons why you agree with that opinion would vary wildly. There are a lot of people out there that are frustrated with that because they're sick of games wanting to hit a progressive quota. Shut up. Like,
well, yeah, like examine your reasoning.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with it being historically inaccurate, or do you just not want to have a woman in there?
Right. Is like, it just a female
that can be a
thing?
truth for you, and it might be hard to address, but look.
And your willingness to accept other people's opinion is going to be a big deal in this
100%
as well. Yeah. So I actually, and honestly, you made a lot of good points because I agree with you. And I think you made a very good point in saying that we cannot say will you admit, historian, that maybe one time in the entire history of Vikings, there was one ship or there was one raider.
Is it possible?
Yeah, that there was one woman ever. And if they say, I mean, yeah, it's possible. Boom, done. Game over.
This is possibly historically accurate.
Yes.
Because there always has to be the designator possibly.
Yes.
We don't know everything.
But here's my honest opinion on the matter as far as all this goes. Even if you were to say no, I think that we're living in a time right now when we can say, hey, no matter what we're trying to historically represent here, we live in a time where we like to properly represent both genders. Or we like to properly represent gender roles.
At the end of the day,
or gender in general.
We're going to do what we want.
Yeah, and that's what we feel it's important to represent, males and females. And so that's what we're doing.
And it also
it's not historically accurate. Okay, cool.
Cool, don't play the game, man.
Yeah, I don't care.
I'm going to play it still. Okay. Play as a man, that's fine.
Yeah, then just play as a dude.
Yeah.
I do think it would be cool that if you play as a woman, that they throw in some lines, things like
give us a different kind of story.
Just a few lines of dialogue in the beginning of things like, her husband was injured and she took up his role, or she was,
if you want to,
whatever, or what else, like make it something that could be believable in the context of the culture or not.
Yeah.
I 100% support the idea of saying we live in a time that we want to empower gender, and so we're doing this. Is it 100% historically accurate? No.
Maybe.
We
don't know.
Yeah. Maybe. This is
the history we are portraying.
But that's not important to us.
Yeah.
The other historical parts are important to us. That one's not.
Sure.
And then at that point, the argument doesn't become, is it or is it not historically accurate? The argument becomes, why did you want to represent those things and not those other things?
Right.
And you can just give your actual honest reasoning. You can say, we actually honestly wanted to properly represent the weaponry because we feel it gives more of an immersion, and modernly it doesn't matter what type of weapons they use. So at this point we could just be very accurate and it'd be a lot of fun to be able to do that. But as far as gender role goes, we felt that it had a much more modern importance to be able to include, males and females. And so we wanted to represent both of those.
Yeah. One of our patrons, G Creature, shout out, put this, I think, kind of what we're talking about in a really good way. All works of fiction represent constructed realities, and by demanding a lack of plot holes, which basically here's the analog of, doesn't make sense.
Right.
Wouldn't be woman. You are improperly importing the rules of objective reality into a subjective creation that must be judged primarily on its aesthetic merits. Essentially stating, like, you are going by what you understand to be true and applying it to an inherently false creation.
Right.
We are taking. They made a really good, we've been playing Days Gone, and they made a really good comparison. It's like, why don't we complain about the zombies, but we do complain about fixing a bike by just rubbing a wrench against it?
Right.
It's because we have a real life analog for that. We know that that's not how you fix a bike, but a zombie is not real, and so it's hard to complain that if the zombies aren't real, a zombie real or not. And I think that's like a thing where there's a lot of historical, and you can find lists of there's more there are cultural or aesthetic things in the trailer for Valhalla that are historically inaccurate.
Yeah.
But nobody's complaining about those.
Nope.
People are complaining about, well, I'm pretty sure that there weren't female Vikings, so I'm angry about it. Or something like that. Like, we're taking what we consider to be true, or our understanding of what we consider to be true, and applying that to this subjective false reality in this video game.
Yeah, absolutely. You're trying to input objective truth into a work of fantasy.
Right.
And that immediately will fall apart.
Yes.
Either the fantasy will fall apart, or your truth will not be important anymore. You can't have both of those together. Now, you can include truth if you want to in the fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's always the choice of the person creating the fantasy, how much truth you want to be involved.
100%.
And we're just in a situation right now where in this work of fantasy, they chose not to include that truth. And you got to deal with it. There's nothing you can do about it. It is inherently a work of fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for all your support. What are your opinions on the role of a female character in Assassin's Creed Valhalla? What are your opinions on historical accuracy in video games? Let us know in the comments. Thank you again for listening, and thank you again to Granger for the use of our theme song, All Our Friends Have Wi-Fi, and some of our neighbors do too. It's off the album Dear Slam.
Dear Slam.
It's the sequel to Grand Slam.
It sounds like a ska band to me, or like a
Dear
ska
Slam.
album. Dear Slam.
And it's a Grand Slam with deer meat. With deer bacon.
Nah, that sounds terrible.
Off the album Dear Sam.
Yeah.
And you should go check them out and check out Dear Sam.
Also, head over to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of stuff going on there. We've got our Let's Plays going on. I'm currently playing Control.
Yeah.
You are playing Final Fantasy VII, Des, and we are playing Days Gone still. We're looking forward to playing Last of Us 2. That's going to be something we do. Probably when it comes out. A lot of stuff coming up. As well as we've got some bonus stuff on there right now. We're doing some just kind of talking about, there's a summer game fest happening, lots of news dropping on new games. We talk about the Unreal 5 tech demo. That stuff's going to be up there. If it's not already up there, it's going to be soon. As well as we've started doing a goofy thing every month where I have an old pun joke book and we talk about the puns in there and rate them and make our own puns, and it's goofy and ridiculous. The Punthlies. So that's coming out every month. If you are a patron, some of this content you get access to earlier. So if that can be something you do, and that's at any level, even $1 a month.
Right.
So,
as well as there's some Patreon exclusive content.
Absolutely.
Like the Bargain Bin right now.
Bargain Bin, that's really fun. Super cheap, kind of really bad games that we suffer through for as long as we can.
Yep.
And pay a penny for. So yeah, check out youtube.com/dezandfoxplay.
Huge thank you to our patrons. Huge thank you to you for your support. And always remember, save games, save lives.
See you next week.
My voice is louder.